Shazal bhai, please play the ICI motto. I request all the participants to keep their right hand on your heart. Okay.
येष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति येष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्विमाणः निर्विमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यपि कश्चन एतद्वैता 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 एतद्वैता.
Thank you.
The speaker.
Very respected speaker for today's session, CA Hinesh Doshi sir, the coordinators Manisha Ben and Sameer bhai, and all the participants who have joined us. A very good evening to all of you, and welcome to yet another day for FEMA series. And today, a very interesting topic, very interesting faculty, and I'm sure today is going to be a good learning for all of us. Just two announcements before I hand over to Manisha Ben. First and foremost, the RRC at Udaipur, I think we are getting phenomenal response. The only thing is we have to close it soon now. So those who are yet to finalize it, I think please join us at the earliest. The RRC from Udaipur is from 7th, 8th and 9th of January. And we have got a confirmation from Spurti Vishwas also, who's going to have a one-day leadership training. And second, on the GST workshop, we are having a 15-day GST workshop physical starting from 1st of December. So it will cover all the aspects of GST. We have the best of the faculties, and the best part is that in person we'll be deliberating and discussing GST. So do take advantage of it. It will be starting from 1st December, morning 9:30 to 11:30. So after that, we can also resume our offices. So with this, I would again thank to Hinesh ji for joining us today, sir. Thank you for sparing a valuable time. Over to you, Manisha Ben.
Thank you very much, Chairman, sir. The speaker for today's session, CA Hinesh Doshi ji, the chairman the chairman of the Ahmedabad branch, CA Harit Dhariwal, and all the esteemed participants. Wish you all a very good evening. And we have a wonderful session today on the LO, that is a liaison office, branch office, and the
project office. Yeah, and project office.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible now, Manisha Ben.
Yeah. So, and the project office. So the project office, liaison office, and the branch office are a very integral part of the business operations when you start a business. So for that, we have a wonderful speaker today. Today being the 7th day of our FEMA workshop. So we all are waiting eagerly waiting to hear you, sir. For that, I would first like to request CA Sameer Chaudhary to introduce our speaker, sir. Over to you, Sameer.
Thank you, Manisha ma'am. And thank you, Harit ji and Ahmedabad branch to give me such a golden opportunity to introduce such a stalwart speaker on the topic, CA Hinesh Doshi sir. When we're talking about the same, Hinesh Doshi sir is specializing in tax, regulatory services and laws applicable to foreign companies investing in India or Indian companies investing abroad, practicing in the area of FEMA, inbound and outbound joint ventures, international tax, transfer pricing, DTAA, entry strategies for foreign companies and RBI matters. The firm mainly deals with overseas clients from Japan, Korea, China, and EU countries for advice related to inbound investment into India. Looking at his professional achievements, he has been qualified as CA in 1989 and worked with Khimji Kuvarji and Company and SV Ghatalia and Company. And now he is a part of EY, one of the big four in India, and started own practice in 1991 in the name of Hines R. Doshi and Company, which has already completed 30 years of service. Firm has received ISO 9001:2018 certification from TUV Germany through TUV India Private Limited since 2005. Member of local advisory board of Korean Bank in India from 2008 to 2011. He is even a co-opted as a member of Secondary Market Advisory Committee in SEBI from 2002 to 2011. He has even elected to Managing Council of the Chamber of Tax Consultants in 2010 and hold various positions as Chairman of International Taxation Committee, Honorable Joint Secretary, Honorable Treasurer, and Vice President. He has been elected as President of the Chamber of Tax Consultants for 2018-19, even elected as a
Samir, I will pause here. I think it's enough. You have introduced me enough. I'm just a practicing chartered accountant and a student of FEMA. I think that's enough,
The
actually.
thing is that there is so much about you.
No, there's no need. You are embarrassing me. That's all.
No,
There's
sir,
no
no, sir.
need.
Sir,
There is no
really,
need. Bas ho gaya, khatam. CA hai, bas wahi. We are all colleagues. There is nothing.
sir,
Only
thanks
I
a lot
wrote
for your
FEMA more than
humbleness.
everybody. Bas itna hi hai, aur kuch nahi chahiye. Huh?
Yes, sir, sure, sir. And sir, really, I'm glad that we as Ahmedabad branch have invited you and you have given us a
Thank you.
chance to listen to you. And
Thank
sir,
you.
the floor is yours. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you very much. Sorry, I had only one biodata or profile for introduction. Next time I'm going to shorten it. Good. So thank you, Mr. Harit Dariwal, the chairman, my friend Soumya Seth, who invited me to deliver lecture on this topic, Manisha Ben, and Samir for nicely introducing me. And I'm sorry to pause you during your introduction.
No,
But
sir. No, sir.
thank you very much for doing that. And all the participants who are here, I can see almost 175 plus right now, but I'm sure many more would have registered and would be joining shortly. So a big thank you to the Ahmedabad branch of ICAI in organizing this course and also inviting me. Most important, I was very happy to see the punchline of the program. It is called From Being a Beginner to Being an Expert. So it's a very nice punchline. And I hope at the end of the entire session, how many sessions are you having, Samir, for the course?
23.
20, sir.
Yeah, so I think
23, sir.
50
probably
hours.
I think this is a marathon course, probably one of the longest which any institution has ever held in India, probably. I have seen
Yes,
in
sir.
our chamber, we held 10 to 12 sessions, generally, worst case 14 sessions. But 23
Yes.
is like a marathon. I think really all your participants are going to be expert. I'm very happy that you have done it. So
Thank you very much,
it's
sir.
a very thorough, you can say, course, and very micro level you are touching all the topics of FEMA. So it's wonderful. Secondly, before I start the presentation, I'm happy to see so many physical programs being organized. One at Udaipur, the GST course, even at the Chamber of Tax Consultants, where I was the past president this year, they have planned to have it at the Leela in Gandhinagar. So I'm going to be in Ahmedabad during March. So I'm sure physical programs have started and is getting more cheerer to the candidates and to the delegates who are going to join the program. So once again, I wish to thank you all to enroll for this course and also listening to this session. So now I will just share my screen and start my presentation. So is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. So can I start with the session?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. So basic ground rules for my presentation. I will be covering the entire session in about say 90 minutes, where I would like to pause at 2 or 3 places, at 2 or 3 junctures of my presentation. You can put in all the questions in the chat box. As and when we are at the end of one juncture, I will take up all the questions, something like KBC. बहुत पड़ाव आते हैं बीच में, ऐसे हमारे में भी 3 पड़ाव आएगा. And ultimately, I will take up all the questions at each and every pause when I take it. So, Manisha, can somebody then read the questions as and when we are?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly,
So,
certainly.
perfect. Right. So, great. Now to start with the topic, this is the most, you can say, critical topic, because whatever you have learned up till now, or you will be learning for the entire duration, will be for corporate entities which are set up in India, basically, right? They are not related to, okay, just give me a second. I would just like to take up this call, last call. Yeah, sorry. So this is a session where only session in the entire course where doesn't deal with corporate entities registered in India. All the famous sessions are related to buying of properties in India, ECB in India, outbound investment from India, inbound investment in India, exports and import of goods, all related to entities which are set up in India. This is the only session which deals with a foreign entity having set up in India but is not a registered entity in India. It's a very unique session. I have delivered probably more than 200 lectures only on this topic. It is very, very near to my heart, and probably that's why I get most of the time request to give the talk on this session. So now coming to the presentation. So this will be the 3 parts which we are going to deal. One is establishment of liaison branch project office. Second part B would be the procedure related to RBI, ROC, income tax, FRRO. Third would be the winding up and closure. So ground rules first. How does the entire session or entire parameter for this setup of liaison branch project office are governed? The overview of FEMA is FEMA notification 22R. R is the revised one. There was FEMA 22, but in 2016 there was FEMA 22R. Then there are APDIR series circulars. AP means authorized person, or we call classically we call banks. Circulars and series circulars are issued. FAQs are issued. Master direction number 10 and 18, which are purely on the liaison office, branch and project office and immovable property. And the mother provision, which is section 6.6 of the FEMA 99, which is the governing provision. So all 4 together would be governing the entire overview of how the liaison branch or project office is set up, then administered, supervised, and finally wound up. So this is the overview. This is very important slide. Now the part A, establishment of liaison branch project office in India. Just to give the sense, many of them said this is too small an area of practice, why I should practice in this area. I mean, there's hardly any client which I can get. But you please see the numbers which are there. The numbers here are, you can say, liaison. No doubt there's a declining number. Last year, there were only 29 applications which were there. In 2021, we have till the time 30th June 2021, we have 13 applications. For branch office last year, 28 applications were there. This year, 11 applications have been filed until 30th June 21. And you can see the larger number Liaison office, there as of today on a cumulative basis, we have 2,641 liaison offices operating in India, 1,558 branch offices operating in India. So you can imagine a huge market is available here, huge, you can say numbers are there to serve, and that's why this topic is very important. If you cumulate only these two, there are more than 4,200 liaison and branch operating in India for a foreign entity. And according to me, at least 2,000 project offices would be there. So overall, a market size is quite big. More than 6,000 entities are operating in India. And so that's why it's very important. This is just to make the participants interesting as to why this session was necessary. This is the mother slide of the entire presentation. Why I said my presentation is unique out of all the sessions which you have, which you are saying you have 23 sessions. This is one of the only unique session where we are going to cover this entire three option as a foreign company, which is liaison branch project office. This would be the only session in your entire 23 session course, which will deal with a non-resident foreign company established in India. The other two are related to LLP, which is again an Indian registered company or a partnership. Then as an Indian company, which is again registered under Companies Act 2013. So your 22 sessions are mainly related to the other two part. This is the only session which will cover as a foreign company, where the foreign company will set up the entity in India. So I think the participants have to understand, like the way, let's take an example, Larsen & Toubro establishes branches all over the country. It still remains as Larsen & Toubro, say UP branch or Noida branch or Delhi branch or Chennai branch or Calcutta branch or Mumbai branch. Same way, here all the entities which would be in India would be called, say, ABC Singapore, will be called ABC Singapore India Liaison Office, or ABC Singapore India Branch Office, or ABC Singapore India Project Office. So that's the difference, where you don't lose the character of the original parent entity, you remain a parent entity, you continue to be part of the foreign entity, and you are recognized as a non-resident always in India. You will be considered as a non-resident. So from tax purposes, FEMA purposes, you are a non-resident. Fine. So I think this part is the most critical part. Anybody has any questions can put in the chat box, and I will be very happy to answer. Because unless you know this part very well, what we are going to cover, it would be very vague for the participant to understand what we are going to understand, the nitty-gritty of how to form, how it is administered, and how it is wound up. Next is, out of the three animals, what we call liaison branch project office, or we very jokingly call LOBOPO. The first is the liaison office. Liaison office is something like a may I help you counter. When you go to a railway station or an airport or any other mall, you find a help you counter, may I help you, or an information counter. So this is exactly like that. The liaison office is something like a may I help you counter. What does it do? Mainly four things are permitted under FEMA. One is representing the parent company or a group company in India, promoting export and import to India and from India, promoting technical financial collaboration between parent entity, group companies and companies in India, acting as a communication channel between parent company and Indian company. So classically, may I help you counter or information counter does not sell you tickets, does not give you any material. It only guides you where to go, how to go, and gives you some kind of information. Same thing is liaison office. It cannot sell goods, it cannot buy goods, it cannot export, it cannot import, it cannot do any business. It simply can say, This is my company for which I am working. This is what are our products. If you want any further information, please write email to our parent entity. Somebody will come, can you show me the display of your product your parent company is selling? You can simply show your products. It can be displayed. Somebody can always say, can I get in touch with your head office? Yes, this is the email ID. These are the people you can contact. Okay, can I get some kind of a quotation? Okay, yes, I can guide you to the right person, but I cannot give you any quotation. This is what is the role of a liaison office, something like a may I help you counter. Next is the branch office. A liaison office is something which cannot do business, but a branch office can do everything except manufacturing. So what does a branch office does? After having understood the Indian market, you would say, okay, I would like to really tap the opportunity, potential business prospects in India. Let me try and do some business here. So I'll open a branch office. I can import. So what are the classic activity permitted? Export oblique import of goods, rendering professional or consultancy services, carrying research work, promoting technical financial collaboration, representing the parent company in India and acting as a buying and selling agent, rendering services in IT and development of software, rendering technical support to the products supplied by parent or group entities. So these are the basic activity which you are supposed and you can carry out. This is more like an extension. Then after liaison office, what? So after liaison office, branch office is the next structure. You can earn income here. You can render services here. After rendering the service, what is the profit? You pay taxes at the rate of almost 40% plus surcharge and education cess, and pay the taxes here and remit the money. So liaison office, you can do nothing, purely information and research. Branch office, you can do everything except manufacturing, development of software, buying, selling, rendering service, etc. We'll come to project office little later because the first part I would like to take up only for liaison and branch office. In the first part, the client comes to you. What are the criteria? You would say, yes, having understood what I can do, what is the criteria to open? So there are two categories. One is RBI route, second is government route. Please note, in RBI, automatic route, automatic permission, general permission does not mean anything is automatic, anything is general, and everything requires prior approval. So under this route, even though it's RBI route, they mention automatic route. The thing is, all the principal business of parent entity or foreign entity eligible for 100% FDI under automatic route can apply to RBI. After applying to RBI, RBI will, after applying to the AD bank, they will scrutinize. They will see the parent entity's FDI. If it is under automatic route, after seeing other antecedents, other KYC compliance, they will recommend to RBI. RBI will issue UI number and the setup of liaison office takes place. Assuming you are not under 100% FDI route, in that situation, you need to apply to the Reserve Bank of India, which would further take up with central government. And then the entire application is screened and the approval is given. So this is the two kind of two-stage approval. One is automatic, second is the RBI route. Third, are there any prohibition? Can anybody and everybody open a liaison office? Yes, there are certain cases like those which have to go under approval route of the government. One is, as usual, classic case, Pakistan citizen or entities. Entities, foreign entities whose principal business falls in defense, telecom, private security, and information and broadcasting. Third, any foreign NGO, NPO, that is non-profit organization, or a body, agency, department of a foreign government, like say a trade embassy of a foreign entity, a tourism department of a foreign country or some other department of a foreign country wants to set up an office in India. Like say classic example, Swiss tourism department wants to set up a branch office or a liaison office in India. They have to come to this category basically. But it requires government approval because it's a government authority. Cases like FCRA, which are covered under FCRA, are not governed under FEMA. There is a separate regulation under FCRA where Ministry of Home is concerned and they would be giving approval. FEMA does not play, even though they are NGO, but covered with FCRA clauses, you have to go under relevant clauses of FCRA for approval. There is no RBI which is involved in this. And fourth is category where if the citizen or entity registered in other countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Iran, China, Hong Kong, Macau. If they set up a liaison or branch only in 3 places, which is Jammu and Kashmir, Northeast region, and Andaman and Nicobar, which are very sensitive and there are border issues and which are very strategic location, those places you need a prior approval again of the central government. And for these countries, they need an approval, a prior approval is required. For example, if countries, say a Bangladesh entity want to set up in Bombay, there is no need for any approval because it is not part of Jammu, Kashmir, Northeast or Andaman. Or a Sri Lankan entity want to set up in Delhi, no problem. But if it want to set up in either JNK or in Sikkim or in Andaman, then only they have to go approach RBI and then central government gives the permission to set up the liaison office. Next. So first we saw the category that is RBI route, government route. Second, we saw are there restrictions related to the citizen of the country. Then we saw some category like defense, telecom. Then we saw whether NPO, NGO. And the last category we saw were Andaman, Nicobar and those category. Third criteria. If it's a liaison office, they require a 3-year profit-making track record. In case of branch office, they need 5-year profit track record. Net worth 50,000 USD, 1 lakh USD for a branch office. What happens in case this track record is not met? If the ultimate parent satisfies the condition of net worth and profitability, they can give a letter of comfort saying, sorry, my subsidiary is unable to meet, but I am meeting the criteria. If there is any deficit or any cash flow issue or fund flow issue, I am ultimately taking an indemnity that I will be remunerating, I will be reimbursing, and I will be supporting the Indian liaison or a branch office. This is how the third criteria will be met. Next criteria is related to a manufacturing entity. There is a category where in SEZ, for any reason, suppose you are going to set up a manufacturing unit, then establishment of a branch office or unit in SEZ, there is a general permission to establish. But what activities can be taken? It can undertake manufacturing, service activity, where the parent company is involved in 100% FDI, which is permitted. They are registered with ROC Chapter 22 of Companies Act 2013, requires every foreign company to register under Indian Companies Act and accordingly get a certificate of registration. It should function as a standalone unit and winding up and remittance of proceeds, file the documents with AD Bank as and when they want to wind up. So having understood the nitty-gritty, what are the documents to be filed with the RBI? One is application by LOBO in form FNC. It's a 3 or 4 page form requiring basic KYC compliance. Not very difficult, but a lot of elaborate. Earlier it was just a 2-page form, but now it has become 4 or 5 page form. A lot of information, any criminal cases filed, exports to India, imports to India, a lot of information are asked. Once you have submitted, the Indian bank will go through the KYC of it happens is that once you fill up the form, you have to select an AD bank. AD bank means the Indian bank will be the authorized bank to handle the application. They will be responsible for every KYC. They will be responsible for any conduct of the liaison office. All the regulations have to be supervised by this bank, and they will be reporting to RBI for any management or mismanagement of the liaison office and branch office. Second is, in case if it is a foreign bank which set up a branch office or a liaison office, they need to apply to DBR, Department of Banking and Regulation in Reserve Bank of India. And in case of insurance company, they will be filing with IRDA. RBI does not monitor foreign banks. RBI, in the sense, Foreign Exchange Department of RBI will not manage foreign banks and insurance companies because they are out of their purview. DBR will only manage foreign banks. IRDA will only manage insurance companies. Next. How does the process takes place in order to set up the liaison and branch office? First is the AD bank will do entire scrutiny of the application received along with all documents like certificate of incorporation, memorandum, articles, list of directors, shareholders, bankers report, antecedent, seeing the website, whether they are into what activity, are there any other adverse report available on website, everything. After having understood everything, they will give a recommendation letter to RBI along with Form FNC. RBI in Delhi, this is monitored, approved by Reserve Bank of India, Foreign Exchange Department, Central Office in New Delhi. Earlier, for several years, it was in Bombay, but somewhere around 2015, they said no, Bombay has too much work, Delhi has much lesser work. So they shifted the entire division to Delhi. So accordingly, immovable property, foreign bank account, Indian bank accounts, and LOBO PO division was shifted to New Delhi Central Office. So they once again see whether the recommendation given by the AD bank is correct. Any violation has taken place in seeing the FDI cap or the FDI permits. And then finally, they will give approval letter, give a UIN number. UIN is unique identification number. Every liaison branch office has a separate unique identification number. And with that, the approval is granted. Finally, having granted, you need to open it in 6 months of the approval having given. A one-time extension of 6 months is also considered in case it is delayed. But in case you have not opened in 12 months time, then you need to apply to RBI. Why I could not open? And then RBI may give such approval for further extension to open the liaison or branch office. We have seen many such cases during COVID period, wherein we have seen application filed, approval having received somewhere in March 2020, but till today the liaison or branch offices are not opened. We have observed they have been asking for extension, and RBI has been very kind enough to grant permission because of visa issues. People cannot set up the office, foreigners cannot travel, they cannot set up their office. So these are very normal approval which are granted by RBI. Same way in case of foreign insurance company, IRDA and DBR will do the same approval. They will go through the entire process and they finally grant the permission for them to set up. In case of banks and insurance companies, no UIN number is allotted because they are not governed by the Foreign Exchange Department, and hence they don't grant any other UIN number. Having set up the, having got the approval, having set up the office, maybe next stage could be you need to open an additional office. I may have say office say in Bombay. I may feel okay, I need to also check what are the possibilities in Delhi, Chennai, Calcutta, or Bangalore or Hyderabad. I can open 4 offices in each zone, one per zone, north, south, east, west. If you want more than 4, you need to justify to RBI why you need more. But we have seen the current trend is not more than 1 or 2 offices are opened. More than 2, there are questions on the BEPS related to permanent establishment, attribution of income. A lot of issues have come up wherein we don't recommend more employees and more number of liaison offices. Out of the offices, you need to have one as a nodal office, which will be responsible to receive all the notices, which will be responsible to receive all the say letters from RBI, responsible for compliance of filing all the forms at various due dates, which I will come to it later. In case you want to shift from one city to another city, within the city there is no approval required. One city to another city, AD Bank approval is required, and it's more like an intimation which is approved by the AD Bank. There is no need to go to RBI. For a branch office, a very typical scenario is how do you the mention is there of additional activity. Say I am dealing with parent entity in plastic trading, and I mentioned that I want to do plastic trading in India. Then it is approved. If I suddenly want to start paper trading, steel trading, or coal trading, it is not permitted. I need to apply to RBI. I need to mention to RBI that I want to start this additional activity, and please give me permission to start this additional activity, and then the approval is granted and RBI will record the same. Having understood the details, what is the validity period? For a liaison branch office, normally it is 3 years, but for NBFC and construction sector, it is 2 years. By branch office, there is no validity period. It goes on till you are applying for closure. No extension is granted for NBFC in construction and development sector. For liaison office, again, every 3 years, there is a grant of extension, and approval is granted every 3 years. So I think I will take a pause here, Manisha, because I see few questions on the chat box, which would be very important, and the participants would have some basic queries, which I would like to answer so that it becomes very interactive. Yeah, Manisha.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. I'd like to request CA Jai Sheth to read out the questions from the chat box. Yeah, over to you, Jai.
Okay, so sir, I have compiled all the questions at one page. So for the first question is, what about a branch office of a US entity? Where the US entity is owned by an Indian listed company? Is it a non-resident?
Yeah, so there is an FAQ which exactly covers the same thing. As in FEMA, round tripping is the biggest crime. Same way, this is also like an indirect round tripping. Indian entity having a US entity having a branch, it is strictly not permitted. And in FAQ also they have covered, it is not permitted.
Okay, sir. Then what if a US-based FPI company wants a dealing office in India for execution of trades in NSE exchange?
Can you say again? I think there was noise was not clear. Yeah.
So what if Dubai-based FPI company want dealing office in India for execution of trades in NSE exchange?
No, that is not permitted. Because see, they need to open a liaison branch or project office. What we are talking is a completely separate setup wherein an FPI comes into India with the approval of Securities Exchange Board of India. It's a completely different animal, nothing to do with what we are going to deal today.
Okay. Fine. Then can a liaison office representative be Indian resident on behalf of a foreign company?
Yes, no problem. Anybody can be a chief, we call representative or chief representative. Anybody can be there, including an Indian person, no problem.
Okay. Then this question is perhaps regarding the setting up of the LO and DO. So is it optional to go for RBI or government route?
Is it?
Is it optional?
No. Why you should go to government? Only when your parent entity is in defense, telecom,
Defense or
security, or they are from Pakistan, Bangladesh and those category, or they are NPO, NGO, then only you should go to government. And that you don't have a choice. RBI will decide whether you are under automatic route and or under the government route. So you don't have a choice. You cannot, your application has to go to the AD bank.
Okay.
Then your role ends. You have no control over it. AD bank will further send it to RBI. Then RBI will take a call whether they should approve it or they have to further pass it on to the central government.
Okay.
So the applicant has no option or no choice in this.
All right. All right. Fine. Then does Jammu and Kashmir includes now new union territory of Ladakh?
Yeah, it covers, yes. Whatever is the political division, like for example, we say China, but there are questions asked to me, what about Hong Kong? What about Taiwan? What about Macau? So politically, China includes Macau, Hong Kong, Taiwan also. So India recognizes all three as part of China. You see press note 3 with restricts FDI also covers all the three countries actually. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then can a practicing chartered accountant in India provide service of system and operation setup to FPI company? Again, perhaps this is regarding
not, yeah, it doesn't cover here.
Okay, fine. Then from the name of the liaison office or branch office, can we come to know whether it is a branch or liaison office?
No,
Just
unless they mention India branch office or India liaison office, you will never come to know actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it is mandatory that every, if you see Companies Act, it is mandatory to mention that you are a company incorporated in so and so country, and in your letterhead you should mention you are either a liaison office or a branch office.
Then
like you have to write that we are a foreign company incorporated in UK and registered in UK, like that. You have to mention in your letterhead.
So on the letterhead, on the face of the letterhead, it has
you have to mention under Companies Act. It is mandatory to mention actually.
Okay, okay. Then is AD Bank required to track the expiry of a liaison office validity, that is for either for 2 years or 3 years?
Yeah, AD Bank has a very moral and a fiduciary responsibility to see the conduct as if it is like a guardian or custodian. Any requirement, any regulation, any applicable laws which are violated or which are not complied, AD Bank will be responsible. So they are responsible to monitor. No doubt, none of the AD banks generally monitors, but good AD banks have a list where before 3 months expiry, they will send you a letter that it is expiring, please get renewal done, please apply to RBI for extension. But if it is Indian banks, I have not seen, they are never bothered. But foreign banks, good AD banks, they give that kind of reminder.
Okay. Then there is a practical question that what if Indian entity opens a wholly owned subsidiary in USA for management consultant services and all the work is executed under the Indian entity, but billing is done from US entity? Does it require prior approval?
No, but it has nothing to do with liaison branch or project office in India.
Yes.
We are talking of India. This is India-centric work. This is outbound work. Indian company to US. So we have no connection actually.
So is there any particular setup of a business required in India or not? That is not a question.
Yeah, because what we are talking is foreign entities setting up office in India. Here it is reverse way, where Indian entities can set up again a branch in or US. A rep office outside India. Correct. Or under ODI regulation, they can set up a wholly owned subsidiary or a JV outside India. So both are permitted. There is no problem.
Okay. Okay. Then in comparison of setting up of subsidiary and setting up of branch, we know that the setting up of a subsidiary has benefit under income tax.
Right.
Is there any other benefit under FEMA so that one can open a branch and not?
See, branch is biggest thing in India is closure of a Indian private limited entity, which takes sometimes 1 to 3 years or even more than 3 years to liquidate an Indian branch, Indian private limited. Whereas if it's a branch office, within maximum 1 year of closure, you can complete everything, wind up and go back. So if you want a temporary structure, branch office is always good. But when you say I'm going to come for long term, next 10, 15 years, then private limited is very good because of the low. Because you see, for a branch office, tax is almost 43%. Whereas for a private limited, it is only 25.17%. So there's a huge difference between the corporate tax applicable to a branch and a private limited. I'm not calculating dividend at all. I'm just seeing the corporate rate at the first level. There is a huge difference of almost 18-19% in the profit corporate tax.
Right. Continuing to the first question that Mr. Sanjay Joshi asked, that a branch office of a US entity where the US entity is owned by Indian wholly owned subsidiary of an Indian listed company. Is it a non-resident? You said actually it is not permitted, but it actually exists. So is it a running violation?
Yeah, it's a violation, 100%. A complete violation.
Okay.
Because, see, this is like a round tripping. So it is not permitted actually. In fact, you see the FAQ, it is mentioned very clearly. There is written a big no. There is no explanation also, just no, and they have put a full stop.
Okay. And a last question: can LO or BO have bank account with different banks?
LO, no. See, I will come to the bank account. I'm covering in my further slides in the operational. But just to conclude the question, only one bank account is allowed with an AD bank. You cannot open more. If you want to open more bank account, you have to again apply to the AD bank and RBI, giving reason why you want one more. We generally apply saying that my bank is, say, Citibank. They have no authority to collect TDS or GST, and I want a seamless payment. So please allow me to open in State Bank of India or IDBI Bank or any other nationalized bank. And they very well give permission that, okay, except for paying taxes, you can use the other account, but for payment of taxes, we allow you to open another bank. Otherwise, it is not permitted. Only one bank account is permitted.
Okay. So perhaps we are done with almost all the questions, so we may
Okay.
proceed further.
Okay, excellent. So now we are going to touch upon do's and don'ts. I'm very happy with the kind of questions. I think the audience, I think they are not beginner. I think they are at an advanced level, all of them already. So I'm extremely happy that they have fair idea of knowledge for the topic which we have taken today. Yeah. Okay. So what are the do's and don'ts? Very simple. All expenses to be met by inward remittances. They can place fund in FD not exceeding 6 months. As mentioned here, can open only one bank account. LO can be upgraded to BO with AD approval. Not very difficult procedure. Logically, PAN number will remain the same. No foreign law firm can open a LO in India. They cannot undertake any commercial business activity which we have already understood. It's pure information counter. It's just a may I help you counter. They cannot do any business or transact any income, cannot earn any income in India, cannot have any signing or commitment powers on behalf of HO, and debit cards and credit cards can be issued subject to the permissible compliance of the AD bank. What are the do's and don'ts for the branch office? Every activity, new activity requires permission from RBI. They can have only one AD bank, will be responsible. All expenses met from the permitted activity. Income, like they cannot do from other kind of commission business if they are into trading, or they cannot have rental income or any other activity in India. Income earned from abroad to be repatriated. If they have exported goods, they should send the money back to India. They can place the fund in FD, again not exceeding 6 months. LCs can be opened in a branch office because they need some export and import of goods. They need to have an LC. facility in India, which is permitted. Most important here, this is FAQ number 15, with the participant has asked question here. Subsidiary of Indian company abroad cannot open branch office in India under automatic. So this is the answer here. And I've seen, even though it's mentioned under automatic route, RBI, central government does not permit unless we really justify the need for doing it. For example, I've invested only $1 abroad, but otherwise the company is like Facebook. Let's take very classic example. Under LRA scheme, I've invested, my Indian company has invested in Facebook, right? Under normal ODI scheme, Facebook is come to India. It is not in my control. In that scenario, yes, there is a possibility, there is no problem. Under normal circumstances, it is not possible, because where I am in full control, it is not permitted to open a branch office in India. And retail trading is not permitted, manufacturing, processing, except a branch office in an SEZ zone. A branch office cannot open foreign currency account, and same criteria for the credit card and debit card. Fund-based activity, or you can say banking facility, credit facility for a branch office, yes, permitted, because it is doing an active business. It requires approval, sorry, not approval, it requires sanction and credit facility, which is permitted. How does branch remit money? Very simple. On the end of the year, the audited balance sheet and P&L needs to be submitted. CA certificate confirming profit, payment of tax and remittable surplus. And profit should not include revaluation of branch assets. When this is done, just apply in Form A2, Form 15 CACB, CA certificate, copy of balance sheet, P&L, remittable profit statement, proof that taxes are paid, and the money can be remitted to the parent entity, which is outside India. In case there is a change of name, in case of a liaison office or a branch office, if it's simple name change, no problem, no approval required, simply the AD Bank will change it. For this, the application is received with a board resolution showing it just name change, and RBI will note it and change it in their also record, website and database. But in case there is a change of ownership or there is an M&A, you need to close the existing Indian company, Indian branch, Indian liaison office, and apply for a fresh approval, because as per RBI, it's a complete change of management, ownership, re-KYC has to be done, re-approval has to be done. I would again pause here, because now we are coming into third part, which is project office. I see 2-3 questions. I think if Jay can take up those 2-3 questions so that we are complete for the liaison and branch office.
Yes, sir. So, is it compulsory to remit the profits every year?
Not required. It can be done as and when you want it. There is no compulsion. But only it cannot be done interim. You say after 6 months, I want to remit profit, not allowed. But after 3 years, yes, no problem. After 10 years, no problem. But interim is not permitted.
Okay.
Like in company, we have interim dividend allowed, but in companies, in branch office, it is not permitted.
All right. And another question is, can the branch office do trade transaction and book forward contracts?
Say again, I missed out.
Can a branch office do merchanting trade transaction and book forward contracts?
Yeah, it's permitted. If you mention it in your list of permitted activity and RBI approves it, there is no problem. Absolutely no problem. But generally, nobody opens a branch office for a merchanting trade. I have not seen any such case. Ideally, people want to set up in India to do business with India. Either they buy from India and export, or they import into India and they sell. But merchanting trade, India is not. I would rather set up in Dubai where there are no taxes, or I would set up in some low tax jurisdiction like Singapore or Hong Kong. Why would I come to India and pay 43% tax for a merchanting trade? It does not make, it is absolutely inefficient tax planning if it is done. So nobody would do it.
Done, sir.
Done? Okay, excellent. So I think I can see one more question. Jay, I think, is done? All questions are done?
That as EEFC account is not allowed to open, so still is it permissible to do forward contracts?
Yeah, they are permitted. Anything which is related to Forex, there is no restriction at all. You can do it, no problem. Okay, now we come to the third animal, which is called project office. It's a very dynamic thing. Here, if suppose I give you an example, a metro project is being done in Bombay, then the foreign entity would say, I just got this one project. I don't want to open a private limited. I would rather work for this project for 3 years and I'm done with it. Maybe I may not get another project. Let me close this office and go back to my country. But if I'm absolutely confident I'll get 10, 15 projects, my presence in India will make a difference, then I open a private limited entity in India. But those clients who are not very sure of any future projects, they would always go for a project office. It's a temporary arrangement in India to be present and do business. Most of the infrastructure projects are through the project offices. Unless they are in India for several years, they would not open an Indian subsidiary. So what are the conditions? A project office has secured an order from Indian company. They have received necessary clearances, and project is funded either by inward remittance or a bilateral multilateral international agency or granted term loan from a bank in India. If any of the three conditions, not any, if all the three conditions are fulfilled, then there is a general permission. You don't need to go to RBI to get the permission. If not, you need to go to RBI. Let's take an example. L&T wants to give a contract, or Reliance Industries wants to set up a refinery. A foreign company gets a contract to do a work for them in Jamnagar refinery. It is project for say 1 year or 2 year period. It's covered by all the schemes, and hence they don't need permission. Simply they can start the project office, open the bank account. But a foreign company has got a contract, it further subcontracts to another foreign company. Then the first condition that PO has secured from Indian company a contract in India is not complied. So it has to go to RBI for a permission, and then only it can set up a project office in India. So this is the condition for the project office. Same 4 conditions, where if it is a citizen of Pakistan, principal business of the parent is into defense, telecom, private security, information broadcasting, NGO, NPO, and the project office is set up in these 3 locations by these entities: Jammu Kashmir, Northeast, Andaman Nicobar, etc. What are the activities permitted for them? They can only execute project in India. They can only do service or warranty period in India. Nothing else can be done by the project office. You can't do trading activity, no export, import, no rendering of software service, nothing is permitted. No UIN number is allotted for project office. Application by the project office again is to be in Form FNC in case you are going under the prior approval. What are the do's and don'ts for the project office? Do's and don'ts are basically again AD to ensure only permissible debit and credits, like project related debit and credits are there. They can open 2 non-interest bearing foreign currency account, one in USD, one in home currency. Home currency in the sense it's a European company. They can open up in Euro. It's a Japanese company in Japanese yen. If it's a not American, if it's a say a Chinese entity, they can open in RMB, that's permitted. Then acquisition of property is allowed. However, it's impractical. I've never seen, rarely seen, not never seen, branch or a project office buying property. Generally, they go for a tenure of lease, which is not exceeding 5 years. Most important, each project office to have a separate bank account, a separate site office account is possible if you apply to RBI, and the same condition, term deposit not exceeding 6 months and above. Some further do's and don'ts. LC, because it's a business entity, local letter of credit is permissible. It can be opened. Only project debits are related to project related expenditure, and credits can be the foreign currency receipt from project authority or any other bilateral agencies. It cannot lend any money to any person in India, cannot undertake any activity other than execution of project. I have seen many project offices doing trading, importing, exporting, rendering of service, and many other activity, but it is not permitted. I have seen many entities, as per law, only one project per project office is allowed, but they transfer fund inter se without RBI permission. Even though they need to open a separate bank account, they open one bank account. Even though they require separate accounting, they have only one accounting, common accounting. These are all not permitted. Again, the tenure of the office, the tenure of the office is till the tenure of the project. And if you want an extension, for example, COVID, the project is delayed. Yes, you apply to RBI that we due to COVID, instead of 3 years, it goes for another 2 years, they will grant you permission. I have never seen RBI refusing. Give genuine reason, and AD Bank and RBI will grant you permission for the extended period. This I have covered about LO, BO, PO. BO and PO generally is permitted to acquire the immovable property, but not for carrying out leasing or renting activity. It is not permitted. It can be incidental, but it cannot be the main activity. Generally, 5 years is the commonly understood practice followed by all of them. They go for a lease period for not exceeding a tenure of 5 years. In case of a project office, in case they want to remit money, again, same thing like a branch office, you need to have a completed even 1 year, show the profitability through the profit and loss account, balance sheet, show that taxes have been paid, show that there is a remittable surplus, and with these documents, you can remit the money and it can be remitted back to your parent entity. During the operational part of the liaison branch project office, if you wish to say transfer your assets to your some JV which is of the same entity or a WS of the same entity, then it is permitted with the specific approval of RBI. Otherwise, it's a violation. I have seen several compounding orders on transfer of assets without RBI permission, and then finally the compounding is done and penalties are paid. These are all very standard compliances. One very important point is on the donation of old furniture. We have seen many entities wanting to donate old furniture. So donation of old furniture, vehicles, computers, office items to NGO, NPOs permitted by AD Bank after satisfying the bona fide and ensuring that they are given to genuine NGOs and NPO. Okay, now coming to the part B, and are there any questions, Jay? Otherwise, we will continue.
Yes, sir. There are a couple of questions. asked by the participants. So the first question is in the Jamnagar case study that you discussed.
Yeah.
The inward remittance is not from abroad, so permission will be required, right?
No, because no. There are three conditions. One is loan taken from a bank or multilateral, or there is a government approval received for the project. So when Jamnagar refinery is done, definitely government would have given the permission to set up such a big refinery. That is enough condition. One of the three is required.
Okay. Then this question is about the licensing office, that authorized representative appointed by a foreign company for compliance of BIS, that is Bureau of Indian Standards, testing of samples, and also responsible for visa, transport, air ticket, etc. of employees of foreign company. Now, whether such authorized representative will be considered as liaison office?
No, it will be considered a branch office because it is rendering active service. So they need to apply under the category of branch. So they are rendering active service, they are earning income, and they will be generating revenue in India. So they can open a branch office.
Okay. Then can PO purchase immobile property?
Yes, they can purchase. It is mentioned here. No problem.
Okay. Then what are the AD bank powers conferred by RBI? They hold certain inward and outward of funds. For example, purpose not clear or delay in submission of compliance documents, etc.
I am not able to get the question actually very clearly.
What are the AD bank powers conferred by RBI? And can they hold certain inward and outward of funds? For example, purpose is not clear. That's why they are just holding the funds.
They are pertaining to bankers. We are talking of liaison and branch office. So I don't think this question is pertaining to this topic. It is more pertaining to AD banks actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there is an expansion in existing manufacturing unit and contract has been outstanding to foreign company funded by internal accruals of Indian company. In that case, do we need special permission?
Not required. As I said, if you have taken approval as a project from the local department, environment department, or from the local industrial department to set up, there is no permission.
Okay. This is in line with the PO bank account. So the question that was referring to the ED bank powers is with respect to the PO bank accounts. That is the question asked by Mr. Jagdish Panchal.
So what's the question?
The same question, that what are the AD bank powers conferred by RBI?
No, AD powers are basically to ensure that the project office which is set up only does activity related to project office. The debits and credits which come in are purely for the project which they have undertaken. There are no other debits and credits. And ensuring that funds which are remitted abroad are, after proper documentation and after proper payment of taxes and remittable surpluses, calculated correctly. That is the AD bank authority, power and requirement.
Okay. And as regards the authorized representative query, the AR will be considered as branch office and RBI permission is required.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
All right. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Right. We move to the, having now understood what is liaison branch, having understood conditions, having understood tenure, do's and don'ts, and then last we have seen the process, how it is set up. Now we come to the process related to what are the part B, which is procedure post setup. Post setup, very simple, open bank account, having got the permission, comply with ROC. I have seen earlier 50 to 60% of all these foreign entities were never registered with the registrar of companies as a foreign entity. Earlier section was 591 to 595 under Companies Act 1956. The new Companies Act is 380 to 383. It mandatory requires every foreign entity to register with Registrar of Companies and obtain certificate of incorporation. We don't say incorporation, certificate of registration. Incorporation cannot be twice, so it's certificate of registration. There are some countries which are mentioned here, 6 countries where the foreign national has to register with the state police authority, submit annual report as per Annexure 3 to the DGP of the concerned state. The copy of approval should also be marked by the AD Bank into Ministry of Home, Government of India, Delhi. A standard requirement, which is very common, I think this audience does not need information, but 2 things. FRRO for expat, this is something which I will cover at a later stage. Others are very standard registration. These are the yearly annual compliance. Form 45C under section 285 is for a liaison office, which is to be filed on every 30th May, completion of the financial year. This is under income tax. Form FC3 and FC4 is again an annual return and annual accounts. This is with ROC. Then annual activity certificate and accounts again with the AD Bank, which is indirectly to Reserve Bank of India, to the DGIT, which is Director General of International Tax, DGP, DGP annexures, and then the income tax return, which is due 30th September, 30th November in ITR 6, which is applicable. I knew about 5 years ago or about 8 years ago, most of the companies were not filing, liaison office were never filing. They were taken legal opinion from large firms saying that since you have no income in India, you are not liable. But after FBT having come in, everybody started filing it. But before FBT, I have seen hardly any liaison offices filing tax return. But even now, there are opinions floating that since you have no income in India, you don't have to file income tax return. But I think it's an incorrect opinion. Every foreign company, they are considered as a corporate. Having registered with Registrar of Companies, all requirements of Companies Act are applicable, and hence even the income tax return filing is mandatory. Now we come to the winding up and the closure, having understood the entire gamut of opening, registering, administration, do's and don'ts, registration, we come to the closure. Again, same way for the closure, the transfer of assets by way of sale to the JV or WSB allowed by AD Bank only when the non-resident intends to close their liaison or branch office. Other conditions are same as applicable. Application with remittance of winding up proceeds along with necessary to be submitted to AD. In this sense, what are the closure proceeds, list of liabilities, if any, if it is unpaid. In case you have any intangibles, everything needs to be disposed of, and finally you can apply for closure. To ROC, you need to file form FC2, and once you have filed form FC2, ROC will scrutinize the document and issue you the closure. ROC issues the closure certificate purely on the basis of Companies Act, not from any other perspective. I think these are standard documents which are necessary for winding up. You need to show them copy of approval, auditor certificate showing calculation of remittable amount, all liabilities have been met, no income is accruing which has got remained unrepatriated, confirmation that no legal proceedings are pending, report from ROC relating to compliance, and any other document prescribed while granting approval. Just a simple review of RBI website for various compounding which are committed for liaison office. We have seen many liaison offices, even the approval is given only set up in Bombay, but we have seen many liaison offices having set up more offices other than the city where the approval is given. So Bombay would have, say, granted, taken approval only for Bombay and Delhi, but they also had office in Chennai and Calcutta. They need to go for compounding. Transfer of assets without obtaining RBI permission. Transfer of surplus funds to subsidiary without obtaining RBI permission. They open a subsidiary and they, whatever balance is there in the yellow account, they simply transfer to the Indian subsidiary. It's absolutely not allowed. It's not considered as FDI also. So from FEMA perspective also, it is not an investment. Then on conclusion of the validity period, still operating, say approval was for 3 years. They didn't go for renewal and still it is operating and they have to go for compounding. Annual activity certificate is falsely given or it is not given correct information about what activity you are doing. Maintaining 2 accounts with 2 different AD banks. This is again not permissible and not allowed. Standard contravention for branch office, again similar, additional branch office without permission. Carrying out activities other than what is permitted, other than what is approved during the permission taken. Intermittent transfer between PO and BO without RBI permission. Standard question asked to me in several seminars. Can a entity have a liaison office and a branch office together, or liaison office and a project office together, or can all 3 be also be possible? I feel it can be either liaison or branch office, ideally, not both. Practically, it doesn't make sense. But yes, project office and branch office both can be there. And we have seen many such cases of both existing. But no transfer of fund between one project office to another project office to branch office to liaison office. Interstate transfer, intermittent transfer is not permitted at all. For a project office, what are the kind of generally committed contraventions? As per our view, establishing a branch office by citizens without prior permission. I have seen several Chinese enterprise coming to India. They need RBI permission, but they have operated in India without RBI. All of them have gone for compounding. Delayed submission of CA certificate with AD Bank. Inter-project transfer. Even though one project has a huge surplus fund available, second one needs money, they just transfer it. Ideally, they should get money from their parent, or the one project should remit money to parent, bring back in the other project. But interstate transfer without RBI permission is not allowed. Same way, sale and transfer of assets without RBI permission. Not obtaining for more than one bank account in case they want. They maintain one single account for multiple contracts, which is not allowed. Delayed reporting to RBI for setup of a project office. So I think I will touch upon the FRRO part because I think that is the area where all the participants should know. Every liaison branch project office may have an expatriate. Every expatriate who comes to India has to come on an employment visa. They cannot come on a business visa. On their arrival, within 14 days of their arrival, they need to get a permission. They need to register with FRRO, which is called Foreigners Registration Regional Office in the local city. Once having registered within 14 days, they issue a permit. They call RP, residential permit. With that permit, they are then permitted to travel anywhere in the country in case they want to. Even they check in the hotel, They will tell you, okay, show me your visa, show me your FRRO permit, then only they will be permitted to generally stay in the hotel in case they are coming and having an employment visa. With this, they need to also file their tax returns. Their salary cannot be less than 25,000 USD per annum. Otherwise, employment visa is not granted by Indian Embassy abroad. And all other compliance which are applicable for income tax, like filing of tax return, paying advance tax if any, TDS compliance, everything applies to them, and they need to do the needful. I think at my end, I have completed the entire process of the presentation. I would be very happy to take any questions, if any, and also anything related to the entire presentation. I'll be very happy to give answer.
Thank you very much, sir. Jay, before you start asking the questions, I would like to request all the participants to put in their whatever questions they have on the chat box, and just in case they want to speak out their doubts, they can just raise their hands. Either Jay or me will unmute them.
Yeah.
So, and whatever questions you have regarding this session, feel free to ask. Sir's always there for us.
Yeah. Reason why I had to run little fast in the last few slides, reason is it's very procedural and it's too boring for the audience to just know what's there. It's there in the slide, but it's not interesting. I would rather deal with the fundamental question of who can set up, how it is set up, what are the nitty-gritties. I am more interested in that.
Correct, sir.
The procedural part is very easy, which I didn't want to read line by line. That's why I ran little faster.
No problem, sir. And if anybody has any doubts, they can bindas ask, sir. He's there for us.
Sure.
So over to you, Jay, now.
Yes, so we have 2-3 questions available in the chat box. So the first question is, assessment under income tax or GST is applicable to LO and BO also? If yes, and if they are pending, how can it be handled when LO or BO is closed?
No, LOBO cannot be closed when there is a pending litigation related to any taxes or any other litigation. They cannot be closed. So you have to first close all the litigation, then only apply for closure. So there is no way you can close actually.
Fine. The next question is, what is the definition of project for operating as a project office? Does the contract needs to have certain threshold on value or time duration?
See, let's assume practically projects which are less than 1 year or less than 6 months, generally nobody opens a project office. Because you would just come to India, everybody comes on a business visa, they render the services within 6 months and they go back. Only when it is a longer tenure, 6 months to 3 years and above, that is where you have issue related to funds, you need to make salary payment, you need a place to sit, and that's where you open a project office. Otherwise, for 1 week to 6 months tenure project, nobody opens a project office.
Okay. Perhaps it will not be feasible even to bear.
Yeah, because you become a permanent establishment. Once you open a project office, you are a PE. That's why 180 days threshold is there under Income Tax Section 6. Also under Article 5 of every treaty, there is a threshold period of 182 days.
Yes.
So below that, why I should pay the tax and set up a project office in India, pay 42% tax unnecessary. I would not do it.
Okay. Then in case of a PO, as a closure, can PO merge with an Indian entity?
No, not allowed, because it's a completely different animal. PO is a foreign entity, so that merger is not possible. You can sell all the assets to your Indian entity. Like selling of all assets is permitted, but you cannot merge your entire setup with the Indian entity. You have to close this PO and run the Indian entity.
Then, as non-compliance of laws and regulations becoming mandatory, as practicing CS holding audit roles, is there a duty to report to ROC or FEMA or information wing, etc.?
Can you please repeat again the question?
As non-compliance of laws and regulations is becoming mandatory, no
Right.
fail.
Right.
As practicing CS holding audit roles, is there a duty to report to ROC or FEMA or information wing?
Okay. On the violation done by the liaison branch or project office,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Ideally, you should report it to AD Bank that these are because you are issuing annual activity certificate. So your annual activity certificate says that if you read the content, the description, it says they have complied with all the regulations of FEMA. So automatically you have to report if they have not complied with, or there are violations, you have to report in your annual activity certificate. With that certificate, AD Banks comes to know what are the violations. Then they will tell the liaison office, you go for compounding. If they don't go for compounding, they will report to RBI that they are reporting, they are violating. Please take action against this particular branch office, liaison office, or a project office.
Okay. Then one more question is the notice of assessment or GST audit can come at a gap of around 2 to 3 or 5 years.
Right.
Then practically how much time will be required for winding up of branch office?
It's a very good question. Same thing happens for a project office.
Yes.
Ideally, it's a catch-22 situation. I agree, but in recent times, I think when we apply for closure, they are doing on priority basis processing under GST that we are going for closure. And then they are doing it out of turn, a review of all your liabilities and review of all the assessments. But otherwise, it takes 3 years for closure actually.
Then if a PO is receiving payment to their foreign bank account from Indian companies for the contracts awarded in India, is this a compliance issue? And if so, who is responsible, PO or the bank or the Indian company making the payment?
No, if the contract is signed where certain source of revenue has to be paid outside India, there is no problem if it is part of the contract. But if everything is in rupee, then there cannot be payment made outside India. So if the contract has 2%, USD portion and INR portion, USD portion obviously they will remit to the parent entity, right? Or if they are taking a non-interest bearing foreign currency account, they can take in India also. But if not, they can get the money abroad. There is no violation in that. But contract should specify that the whole contract is in different currencies. We had a contract which was in USD, Euro, as well as INR. All three were there. So if there is mention in the contract, there is no problem.
Okay, so perhaps the person, Mr. Jagdish Panchal, has raised the hand. He had asked this question.
Yes.
I would request him to unmute and
sure.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. I think you're giving us very much guidance on the the foreign companies to operate in India and the ways to operate in India. Right. And as a matter of fact, these questions are arising from the practical situations which we have seen for the foreign companies operating in India. And typically, as you said earlier, that the contract or the project office needs to be of a certain size and tenure to make to have sense to open a project office. But I think there are instances where projects or contracts keeps on coming. So certain industry are taking that route, and operating in India, despite being a foreign company as a project office, right? So in this kind of a situation, there are situations where bankers or the AD bank or the customer's bank have objected to making the payment despite having the contract in a foreign currency. So there was we came for that there was some internal meeting of RBI and some of the banks raised this question point blank that whether bank, India Bank, can remit the payment to a project office outside India. And so, and in that case, RBI actually said that it should be the PO should receive an explicit approval for receiving the money outside India. So does it mean that they cannot receive, or it's because it's a silent
No,
guideline?
actually, I'll tell you how it happens. The contract is signed with the parent entity. Every contract. PO comes into existence after the contract is signed. Let's take a very practical example how it happens. Reliance gives a contract to, say, foreign company, say GE Electric in USA, right, to do some work for the Jamnagar refinery. The first contract is signed between two entities in India or outside India. And it would mention that this part of the work would be done in India. And for that, the currency of the contract would be, say, 70% in INR, because I'm going to spend that money in India, and 30% is in US dollar, because I have to import certain things for doing that work in India. I don't want a forex risk. So I will say there will be two currency. So Reliance will be then allowed to buy forex to pay in dollars to the Indian project office. Otherwise, it is not permitted. If the entire contract is in INR, then Reliance cannot pay 1 rupee of payment in any foreign currency, because the entire contract is in INR. So that is the difference, where they have clarified that if the contract was in INR, you need to come to RBI to say why you need to make payment in a foreign currency in India. That was the question in the AD Bank's conference where RBI has clarified. I'm aware of this fact. Does this answer your question, Mr. Panchal?
Yes, he said thank you, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so one last question. Does FPI company which gets special permission from SEBI for trading in Indian capital market have any option available for India for support for liaising with broker or custodian?
Generally, they don't open because there is a risk of permanent establishment and there is a significant economic presence issues are coming up recently now in view of Section 5 and Section 9. I have never, in fact, there are people are opening in Gift City in Ahmedabad, these kind of offices. But I've never seen them opening in any other place because there is a significant economic presence issue, PE issue, and Section 5, Section 9 are too large to capture them in India. So I would not recommend them to open anywhere actually, other than maybe Gift City is okay. Yeah.
I think with this we come to an end to our question answer session also. So,
okay, thank you.
All I can say that this is by far one of the best session we have attended in FEMA series.
Thank you.
Personally, I like the dissection of the presentation in 3 parts and answering all the queries of participants at the end of each part, making them understand the subject in better manner. So, on behalf of Ahmedabad branch of WIRC of ICAI, I would like to offer sincere vote of thanks to CA Hinesh Doshi sir. You very well covered the topic of LO, BO, and PO, right from establishment to statutory procedures and to the winding up of the same. This has truly made the subject easy to understand, and looking forward to hearing more from you in coming time.
Anytime. And I can tell Ahmedabad branch, we practice on all areas of FEMA, including ODI, ECB. Whenever you have any session, please, you can count us for any other part of FEMA presentation, and we'll be very happy to do it. Thank you very much for patient listening to the entire team, entire audience. It's a huge audience. I'm very happy to see they are not beginners. I can conclude now, Manisha Ben. I think none of them are beginners.
Thank you so much.
They are all very expert consultants who know FEMA. In fact, it's a refresher course for them. I don't think it's a beginner's course for them. Thank you very much.
So we all are beginners in the sense like we learn every day.
Agreed.
So even at the fact
I started learning FEMA in 1994. At that time it was FERA.
Yes, FERA.
So the journey now, even today I'm still a student after 27 years of studying FERA and FEMA.
Exactly. For all
Yeah.
of us senior chartered accountants, we've
Yeah.
studied FERA.
Correct,
It
absolutely,
FEMA like came in very later on.
absolutely correct. Right. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for a patient listening.
Thank
to
you
And
my
so much.
session.
thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful session. We
Thank you.
are actually short of words. It was really good.
Thank you. Thank you very
And we look
much.
forward to hearing you again.
Sure, definitely. My pleasure. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you,
Everybody.
Dinesh, I would like
Thank
to
you.
thank all the participants also for making it an interactive one.
Yeah, it was really interactive.
Yes.
I'm extremely happy to see the kind of response and the questions, very, very intelligent questions. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. See you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, and same to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.